Hi everyone, welcome back to Goodnight Stories. My name is Lyra, and I will be your guide into whatever book we decide to read tonight. From young readers to young adult novels, my hope is to give you a comfortable space to listen to a story while you work or doze. So, sit back, relax, grab a cup of tea. Tonight we start Erin Hunter's Rising Storm, the fourth book in the original Warrior series. Prologue. An agonized groan echoed across the moon-bleached floor of a forest clearing. Two cats crouched in the shadows under one of the bushes at the edge. One of them writhed in pain, lashing his long tail. The other cat raised himself to his paws and bowed his head. He had been a medicine cat for many long moons, and yet he could only watch helplessly as the leader of his clan was overpowered by the sickness that had already claimed so many lives. He knew of no herb that would ease the cramps and fever the sickness brought, and his patchy gray fur bristled with frustration as the leader convulsed again and then fell exhausted into the mouse-lined nest. Fearfully, the medicine cat leaned forward and sniffed. There was still breath in the leader's body, but it was foul and shallow, and the Tom's thin flanks heaved with every gasp. A screech ripped through the woods, not a cat this time, but an owl. The medicine cat stiffened. Owls brought death to the forest, stealing prey and even kits that had strayed too far from their mothers. The medicine cat raised beseeching eyes to the sky, praying to the spirits of his warrior ancestors. That the owl's call was not an ill omen. He stared through the branches that formed the roof of the den, searching the dark sky for Silverpelt. But the swath of stars where StarClan lived was hidden by clouds, and the medicine cat shivered with fear. Had their warrior ancestors abandoned them to the sickness that ravaged the camp? Then the wind stirred the trees, rattling the brittle leaves. High above, the clouds shifted, and a single star sent a frail beam of light through the roof of the den. In the shadows, the leader drew in a long, steady breath. Hope leaped like a fish in the medicine cat's heart. StarClan was with them after all. Weak with relief, the medicine cat lifted his chin, giving silent thanks to his warrior ancestors for sparing the life of his leader. As he narrowed his eyes against the shaft of starlight, he heard spirit voices murmuring deep inside his head. They whispered of glorious battles to come, of new territories, and a greater clan rising from the ashes of the old. The medicine cat felt joy surge in his chest and pulsate through his paws. This star carried much more than a message of survival. Suddenly, without warning, a wide gray wing swept across the ray of starlight, plunging the den into darkness. The medicine cat shrank back and pressed his belly to the floor as the owl screeched down and raked the roof of the den with its talons. It must have smelled the sickness that weakened the leader and swooped in to search for easy prey. But the branches were too thick for the owl to break through. The medicine cat listened to the slow beating of wings as the owl flew away into the forest, then sat up, heart hammering, and searched the night sky once more. Like the owl, the star was gone. In its place was only blackness. Dread crawled beneath the medicine cat's pelt and clutched at his heart. "Did you hear that?" a Tom called through the entrance of the den, his voice high-pitched with alarm. The medicine cat squeezed quickly out into the clearing, knowing the clan would be waiting for an interpretation of the omen. Warriors, queens, and elders, those well enough to move from their nests, huddled in the shadows on the far side of the clearing. The medicine cat paused for a moment, listening to the clan murmuring anxiously to one another. "What's an owl doing here?" hissed a mottled gray warrior, his eyes glinting in the darkness. "They never come so close to camp," wailed an elder. Did it take my kits? Demanded another warrior, turning his broad head to the cat beside him. Not this time, replied the Silver Queen. She had lost 3 of her kits to the sickness, and her voice was dull with pain. But it might come back. It must smell our weakness. You'd think the stench of death would keep it away. A tabby warrior limped into the clearing. His paws were clotted with mud, and his fur ruffled. He had been burying a clanmate. There were more graves to be dug, but he was too weak to go on that night. How's our leader? He asked, his voice tight with fear. We don't know, replied the mottled Tom. Where's the medicine cat? Whined the queen. The cats peered around the clearing, and the medicine cat saw their frightened eyes gleaming in the dark. He could hear the rising panic in their voices and knew they needed to be soothed, assured that StarClan had not abandoned them completely. Taking a deep breath, the cat forced the fur to lie flat on his shoulders and padded across the clearing. We don't need a medicine cat to tell us the owl's screech spoke of death, whimpered an elder, his eyes brimming with fear. How do you know? Spat the mottled warrior. Yes, agreed the queen, glancing at the elder. StarClan doesn't speak to you. She turned as the medicine cat reached them. Was the owl an omen? She mewed anxiously. Shifting his paws uncomfortably, the medicine cat avoided a direct reply. StarClan has spoken to me tonight, he announced. Did you see the star shine between the clouds? The queen nodded, and around her the other cat's eyes flickered with desperate hope. What did it mean? Asked the elder. Will our leader live? Called the tabby warrior. The medicine cat hesitated. He cannot die now, cried the queen. What about his 9 lives? StarClan granted them only 6 moons ago. There is only so much strength StarClan can give, answered the medicine cat. But our ancestors have not forgotten us, he went on, trying to push aside the image of the owl's dark wing as it blotted out the thin ray of light. The star brought a message of hope. A high-pitched moan sounded from a dim corner of the camp, and a tortoiseshell queen sprang up and hurried toward the sound. The others continued to stare at the medicine cat with eyes that begged for comfort. Did StarClan speak of rain? Asked a young warrior. It's been so long since it rained, and it might cleanse the camp of the sickness. The medicine cat shook his head, not of rain, but of a great new dawn that awaits our clan. In that ray of light, our warrior ancestors showed me the future, and it will be glorious. Then we'll survive, mewed the Silver Queen. We'll do more than survive, the medicine cat promised. We shall rule the whole forest. Murmurs of relief flickered through the cats, the first purrs that had been heard in the camp for nearly a moon. But the medicine cat turned his head away to hide his trembling whiskers. He prayed that the clan would not ask again about the owl. He dared not share the dreadful warning StarClan had added when the bird's wing had obscured the star, that the clan would pay the highest possible price for their great new dawn. Chapter 1. Warm shafts of sunshine streamed through the canopy of leaves and flickered over Fireheart's pelt. He crouched lower, aware that his coat would be glowing amber among the lush green undergrowth. Paw by paw, he crept beneath a fern. He could smell a pigeon. He moved slowly toward the mouth-watering sun until he could see the plump bird pecking among the ferns. Fireheart flexed his claws, his paws itching with anticipation. He was hungry after leading the dawn patrol and hunting all morning. This was the high season for prey, a time for the clan to grow fat on the forest's bounty. And although there had been little rain since new leaf floods, the woods were rich with food. After stocking the fresh kill pile back at the camp, it was time for Fireheart to hunt for himself. He tensed his muscles, ready to leap. Suddenly, a second scent wafted toward him on the dry breeze. Fireheart opened his mouth, tipping his head to one side. The pigeon must have smelled it too, for its head shot up and it began to unfold its wings, but it was too late. A rush of white fur shot out from under some brambles. Fireheart stared in surprise as the cat pounced on the startled bird, pinning it to the ground with his front paws before finishing it off with a swift bite to the neck. The delicious smell of fresh kill filled Fireheart's nostrils. He stood up and padded out of the undergrowth toward the fluffy white Tom. Well caught, Cloudpaw, he meowed. I didn't see you coming until it was too late. Nor did that stupid bird, crowed Cloudpaw. flicking his tail smugly. Fireheart felt his shoulders tense. Cloudpaw was his apprentice, as well as his sister's son. It was Fireheart's responsibility to teach him the skills of a clan warrior and how to respect the warrior code. The young Tom was undeniably a good hunter, but Fireheart couldn't help wishing that he would learn a little humility. Deep down, he sometimes wondered if Cloudpaw would ever understand the importance of the warrior code, the moon's old traditions of loyalty and ritual that had been passed down through generations of cats in the forest. But Cloudpaw had been born in Two-Leg Place to Fireheart's kitty pet sister, Princess, and brought to ThunderClan by Fireheart as a tiny kid. Fireheart knew from his own bitter experiences that clan cats had no respect for kitty pets. Fireheart had spent his first 6 moons living with Two Legs, and there were cats in his clan that would never let him forget the fact that he was not forest-born. He twitched his ears impatiently. He knew he did everything he could to prove his loyalty to the clan, but his stubborn apprentice was a different matter. If Cloudpaw was going to win any sympathy from his clanmates, he was going to have to lose some of his arrogance. "It's just as well you're so quick," Fireheart pointed out. "You were upwind. I could smell you, even if I couldn't see you, and so could the bird." Cloudpaw's long, snowy fur bristled, and he snapped back. "I know I was upwind, but I could tell this dumb dove wasn't going to be hard to catch whether he smelled me or not." The young cat stared defiantly into Fireheart's eyes, and Fireheart felt his annoyance turning to anger. "It's a pigeon, not a dove," he spat, "and a true warrior shows more respect for the prey that feeds his clan." "Yeah, right," retorted Cloudpaw. "I didn't see Thornpaw show much respect for that squirrel he dragged back to camp yesterday. He said it was so dopey a kit could have caught it." "Thornpaw's just an apprentice," Fireheart growled. "Like you, he still has a lot to learn." "Well, I caught it, didn't I?" grumbled Cloudpaw, prodding the pigeon with his sullen paw. "There's more to being a warrior than catching pigeons." "I'm faster than Brightpaw and stronger than Thornpaw," Cloudpaw spat back. "What more do you want?" "Your den mates would know that a warrior never attacks with the wind behind him." Fireheart knew he shouldn't let himself be drawn into an argument, but his apprentice's stubbornness infuriated him like a tick on his ear. "Big deal. You might have been downwind like a good warrior, but I got the pigeon first." Cloudpaw raised his voice in an angry yowl. "Be quiet," Fireheart hissed. Suddenly distracted, he lifted his head and sniffed the air. The forest seemed strangely silent, and Cloudpaw's loud meows were echoing too loudly through the trees. "What's the matter?" Cloudpaw glanced around. "I can't smell anything." "Neither can I," Fireheart admitted. "So what are you worrying about?" "Tigerclaw," Fireheart answered bluntly. The Dark Warrior had been prowling through his dreams since Bluestar had banished him from the clan a quarter moon ago. Tigerclaw had tried to kill the ThunderClan leader, but Fireheart had stopped him and exposed his long-hidden treachery to the whole clan. There had been no sign of Tigerclaw since, but Fireheart felt icy claws of fear pricking at his heart now, as he listened to the stillness of the forest. It seemed to be listening too, holding its breath, and Tigerclaw's parting words echoed in Fireheart's mind. "Keep your eyes open, Fireheart. Keep your ears pricked. Keep looking behind you, 'cause one day I'll find you, and then you'll be crow food." Cloudpaw's mew broke the silence. "What would Tigerclaw be doing around here?" He scoffed. "Bluestar exiled him." "I know," Fireheart agreed, "and only StarClan knows where he went. But Tigerclaw made it clear that we'd not seen the last of him." "You're not scared of that traitor, are you?" "Well, you should be," hissed Fireheart. "Tigerclaw knows these woods as well as any cat in ThunderClan. He'd tear you to shreds if he got the chance." Cloudpaw snorted and circled his catch impatiently. "You've been no fun since Bluestar made you deputy. I'm not hanging around if you're just going to waste the morning trying to scare me with nursery tales. I'm meant to be hunting for the clan elders," and he dashed away into the brambles, leaving the lifeless pigeon lying on the earth. "Cloudpaw, come back!" Fireheart yelled furiously. Then he shook his head. "Let Tigerclaw have the young mouse-brained idiot," he muttered to himself. Lashing his tail, he snatched up the pigeon and wondered whether to carry it back to camp for Cloudpaw. A warrior should be responsible for his own fresh kill, he concluded, and tossed the pigeon into a thick clump of grass. He padded after it and flattened down the green stalks to cover the fat bird, wishing he could be sure that Cloudpaw would return and take it back with the rest of his catch to the hungry elders. If he doesn't bring it home with him, he can go hungry until he does, Fireheart decided. His apprentice had to learn that even in Greenleaf, prey should never be wasted. The sun rose higher, scorching the earth and sucking moisture from the leaves in the trees. Fireheart pricked his ears. The forest was still eerily quiet, as if its creatures were hiding till the evening shade brought relief from another day of glaring heat. The stillness unnerved him, and a flicker of doubt tugged at his belly. Perhaps he should go and find Cloudpaw after all. You tried to warn him about Tigerclaw. Fireheart could almost hear the familiar voice of his best friend Graystripe echoing in his head, and he winced as bittersweet memories flooded through him. It was exactly the sort of thing the former ThunderClan warrior would say to him right now. They had trained together as apprentices and fought beside each other until love and tragedy had torn them apart. Graystripe had fallen in love with a she-cat from another clan, but if Silverstream had not died in her kidding, perhaps Graystripe would have stayed with ThunderClan. Once more, Fireheart remembered Graystripe carrying his 2 kits into RiverClan territory, taking them to join their dead mother's clan. Fireheart's shoulders sagged. He missed his companionship with Graystripe, and still silently shared words with him almost every day. He knew his old friend so well, it was always easy to imagine what Graystripe would say in reply. Fireheart shook away the memories with a flick of his ear. It was time he got back to camp. He was the deputy of ThunderClan now, and there was hunting parties and patrols to organize. Cloudpaw would have to manage alone. The ground was dry under Paw as Fireheart raced through the woods to the top of the ravine where the camp lay. He hesitated for a moment and enjoyed the surge of pride and affection he always felt as he approached his forest home. Even though he had spent his kithood in Two Lake Place, he had known since the first time he had ventured into the forest that this was where he truly belonged. Below him, the ThunderClan camp was well hidden by thick brambles. Bounding down the steep slope, Fireheart followed the well-worn path to the gorse tunnel that led into the camp. The pale gray queen, Willowpelt, lay at the entrance to the nursery, warming her swollen belly in the morning sun. Until recently, she had shared the warrior's den. Now she lived in the nursery with the other queens while she waited for her first litter to be born. Beside her, Brindleface affectionately watched her 2 kits as they tussled on the hard earth, scuffing up small clouds of dust. They had been Cloudpaw's adopted litter mates. When Fireheart had brought his sister's firstborn into the clan, Brindleface had agreed to suckle the helpless kit. Cloudpaw had recently been a maid and an apprentice, and it would not be long before Brindleface's own kits were ready to leave the nursery too. A murmur of voices drew Fireheart's gaze toward the high rock, which stood at the head of the clearing. A group of warriors was gathered in the shadows beneath the rock on which Bluestar, the leader of ThunderClan, normally stood to address our clan. Fireheart recognized Darkstripe's tabby pelt, the lithe shapes of Runningwind, and Whitestorm's snowy head among them. As Fireheart padded silently across the baked earth, Darkstripe's querulous meow sounded above the other voices. So who's going to lead the patrol at Sunhigh? Fireheart will decide when he returns from hunting, Whitestorm answered calmly. The elderly warrior was clearly reluctant to be stirred by Darkstripe's hostile tone. He should be back by now, complained Dustpelt, a brown tabby who had been an apprentice at the same time as Fireheart. I am back, Fireheart announced. He shouldered his way through the warriors to sit down beside Whitestorm. Well, now that you're here, are you going to tell us who's going to lead the patrol at Sunhigh? Meowed Darkstripe. The silver tabby turned a cold gaze on Fireheart. Fireheart felt hot under his fur in spite of the shade cast by the high rock. Darkstripe had been closer to Tigerclaw than any other cat, and Fireheart couldn't help wondering about the depth of his loyalty, even though Darkstripe had chosen to stay when his former ally was exiled. Longtail will lead the patrol, Fireheart meowed. Slowly Darkstripe switched his gaze from Fireheart to Whitestorm, his whiskers twitching and his eyes glittering with scorn. Fireheart swallowed nervously, wondering if he had said something stupid. Longtail's out with his apprentice, explained Runningwind, looking awkward. He and Swiftpaw won't be back till evening, remember? Beside him, Dustpelt snorted scornfully. Fireheart gritted his teeth. I should have known that. Runningwind, then. You can take Brackenfur and Dustpelt with you. Brackenfur'll never keep up with us, meowed Dustpelt. He's still limping from the battle with the rogue cats. Okay, Fireheart tried to disguise his mounting agitation, but he couldn't help feeling he was just plucking names at random as he ordered. Brackenfur can go hunting with Mousefur, and I'd like to hunt with them, Sandstorm offered. Fireheart blinked gratefully at the orange she-cat and went on, and Sandstorm. What about the patrol? It's past sun high if we don't decide soon, meowed Darkstripe. You can join Running Wind on patrol, snapped Fireheart. And the evening patrol? Mousefur asked mildly. Fireheart stared back at the dusky brown she-cat, his mind suddenly blank. Whitestorm's rusty mew sounded beside Fireheart. I'd like to leave the evening patrol, he meowed. Do you think Swiftpaw and Longtail would like to come with me when they return? Yes, of course. Fireheart looked around the circle of eyes and was relieved to see that they all seemed satisfied. The cats moved away, leaving Fireheart alone with Whitestorm. Thanks, he meowed, tipping his head to the older warrior. I guess I should have planned the patrols before now. It'll get easier, Whitestorm reassured him. We've all grown used to Tigerclaw telling us exactly what to do and when. Fireheart glanced away, his heart sinking. They're also bound to be more edgy than usual, Whitestorm went on. Tigerclaw's treachery has shaken the whole clan. Fireheart looked at the White Warrior and understood that Whitestorm was trying to encourage him. It was easy to forget that Tigerclaw's actions had come as a massive shock to the rest of the clan. Fireheart had known for a long time that Tigerclaw's hunger for power had driven him to murder and lies, but the other cats had found it hard to believe that the fearless warrior would turn against his own clan. Whitestorm's words reminded Fireheart that, even if he did not yet have Tigerclaw's confident authority, he would never betray his clan as Tigerclaw had done. Whitestorm's voice interrupted his thoughts. I must go and see Brindleface. She said there was something she wanted to talk to me about. He dipped his head. The warrior's respectful gesture took Fireheart by surprise, and he nodded awkwardly in reply. As he watched Whitestorm leave, Fireheart's belly growled with hunger, and he thought of the juicy pigeon Cloudpaw had caught. Whitestorm's ginger and white apprentice, Brightpaw, sat outside the apprentice's den, and Fireheart wondered if she brought the elders any fresh kill. He padded over to the old tree stump where she was washing her tail. She lifted her head and mewed. Hello, Fireheart. Hi, Brightpaw. Been hunting? Fireheart asked. Yes, replied Brightpaw, her eyes shining. It's the first time Whitestorm's let me out by myself. Catch much? Brightpaw looked shyly at her paws. 2 sparrows and a squirrel? Well done, Fireheart purred. I bet Whitestorm was pleased. Brightpaw nodded. Did you take it straight to the elders? Yes. Brightstar's eyes clouded with worry. Was that okay? She mewed anxiously. That was great, Fireheart assured her. It was if only his own apprentice were so reliable. Cloudpaw should have been back by now. The elders would need more than 2 sparrows and a squirrel to fill their bellies. He decided to visit them to check that they were not suffering too much from the greenleaf heat. As he approached the fallen oak where the elders made their den, voices drifted up from behind its bare branches. Willowpelt's kits will be born soon, that was Speckletail. She was the oldest queen in the nursery, and her single kit was weak and small for its age after a bout of white cough. New kits are always a good omen, purred One Eye. StarClan knows we could do with a good omen, Small-Eared muttered darkly. You're not still fretting about the ritual, are you? Croaked Patchbelt. Fireheart could imagine the old black and white Tom flicking his ears impatiently at Small-Ear. The what? Meowed One Eye. The naming ceremony for the new clan deputy, Patchpelt explained loudly. You know, when Tigerclaw left a quarter moon ago, it's my ears that don't work as well as they used to, not my mind, snapped One Eye. She went on, and the other cats listened in silence because One Eye was respected for her wisdom in spite of her bad temper. I don't think StarClan would punish us just because Blue Star failed to name the new deputy before Moon High. The circumstances were very unusual. But that just makes it worse, fretted Dappletail. What will StarClan think of a clan whose deputy turns against it, and whose new deputy was named after Moon High? It looks as if we can't keep our cats loyal, or even carry out the proper ceremonies. Fireheart felt an icy ripple along his spine. When Bluestar had learned about Tigerclaw's treachery and banished him from the clan, she had been too upset to carry out the proper rituals for appointing a new deputy. Fireheart had not been named as Tigerclaw's successor until the following day, and to many cats that was a very bad omen. Fireheart's naming broke with clan ritual for the first time I can remember, meowed Small-Ear in a grave tone. I hate to say it, but I can't help feeling that his deputyship will be a dark time for ThunderClan. Patchbelt mewed in agreement, and Fireheart felt his heart pound as he waited for One Eye to calm the other's fears with her wise words, but for once she remained silent. Above him, the fierce sun continued to shine in the clear blue sky, yet Fireheart felt chilled to the bone. He turned away from the elder's den, unable to face them now, and paced anxiously along the edge of the clearing. As he approached the nursery, Fireheart stared at the ground, lost in thought. A sudden movement outside the nursery entrance made him look up. He froze and his heart began to pound as he recognized Tiger Claw's amber eyes gleaming at him. Horrified by the familiar gaze, Fireheart blinked in alarm. Then he realized that it was not the fierce warrior he was looking at, but Bramblekit, Tiger Claw's son. Chapter 2. Fireheart saw a ripple of pale amber fur and looked up to see Golden Flower slip out of the nursery behind the dark tabby kit. A pale ginger kit dangled from her jaws, and she placed it gently on the ground next to Bramblekit. Fireheart knew at once that Golden Flower had seen his reaction, for the pale ginger queen wrapped her tail protectively around her kits and lifted her chin as if she were challenging Fireheart to say something. Fireheart felt a rush of guilt. What was he thinking of? He was the clan deputy for Star Clan's sake. He knew he had to reassure Golden Flower that these kits would be cared for and respected like any other members of ThunderClan. "Your kits look healthy," he stammered, but his fur prickled as the dark tabby kit stared up at him with unblinking amber eyes, the image of Tiger Claw's menacing glare. Fireheart tried to push away the fear and anger that made him instinctively unsheath his claws and press them against the hard ground. It was Tiger Claw who betrayed ThunderClan, he told himself, not this tiny kit. "It's Tawny Kit's first time out of the nursery," Golden Flower told him. She glanced anxiously down at the little kit. "They've grown quickly," Fireheart murmured. Golden Flower leaned down and licked each kit on the head, then patted toward Fireheart. "I understand how you feel," she mewed quietly. "Your eyes have always betrayed your heart, but these are my kits, and I will die to protect them if I have to." She looked up into Fireheart's eyes, and he saw the intensity of her feeling in their yellow depths. "I'm afraid for them, Fireheart," she went on. "The clan will never forgive Tiger Claw, nor should they. But Bramblekit and Tawny Kit have done nothing wrong, and I will not let them be punished because of Tiger Claw. I'm not even going to tell them who their father was, just that he was brave and a powerful warrior." Fireheart felt a pang of sympathy for the troubled queen. "They will be safe here," he promised, but the amber eyes of Bramblekit still made his paws prickle with unease as Golden Flower turned away. Behind them, Whitestorm squeezed out of the nursery. "Brindleface thinks her 2 remaining kits are ready to begin their training," he told Fireheart. "Does Bluestar know?" Fireheart asked. Whitestorm shook his head. Brindleface wanted to share the news with Bluestar herself, but she hasn't visited the nursery in days. Fireheart frowned. The clan leader usually took an interest in every aspect of clan life, especially the nursery. Every cat knew how important it was for ThunderClan to have fine, healthy kits. "I suppose it's not surprising," Whitestorm continued. "She's still recovering from her wounds after the battle with the rogue cats." "Shall I go and tell her now?" Fireheart offered. "Yes, some good news might cheer her up," Whitestorm remarked. With a jolt, Fireheart realized that Whitestorm was as worried as he was about their leader. "I'm sure it will," he agreed. "ThunderClan hasn't had this many apprentices in moons." "That reminds me," meowed Whitestorm, his eyes suddenly brightening. "Where's Cloudpaw? I thought he was fetching prey for the elders." Fireheart glanced away awkwardly. "Yes, he is. I don't know what's taking him so long." Whitestorm lifted a massive paw and gave it a lick. "The woods are not as safe as they once were," he murmured, as if he could read Fireheart's uneasy thoughts. "Don't forget Wind Clan and Shadow Clan are still angry with us for sheltering Broken Tail. They don't know yet that Broken Tail is dead, and they might attack us again." Broken Tail had once been the leader of Shadow Clan. He had nearly destroyed the other clans in the forest with his greed for more territory. ThunderClan had helped to drive Broken Tail out of his troubled clan, but had later given him sanctuary as a blind and helpless prisoner, a merciful decision that had not been welcomed by his former enemies. Fireheart knew that Whitestorm was warning him as carefully as possible. The warrior hadn't even mentioned the possibility that Tiger Claw might be around still, but his guilt at letting Cloudpaw go off alone made him defensive. "You let Brightpaw hunt alone this morning," he retorted. "Yes, I told her to stay in the ravine and to be back by sun-high." Whitestorm's tone was mild, but he stopped washing his paw and looked at Fireheart with concern in his eyes. "I hope Cloudpaw won't go too far from the camp." Fireheart looked away and muttered, "I should go tell Bluestar the kits are ready." "Good idea," answered Whitestorm. I can take Brightpaw out for some training. She hunts well, but her fighting skills need some work. Silently, cursing Cloudpaw, Fireheart padded away toward the high rock. Outside Bluestar's den, he gave his ears a quick wash and put Cloudpaw out of his mind before calling a greeting through the lichen that draped the entrance. A soft "enter" sounded from inside, and Fireheart pushed his way slowly in. It was cool in the small cave, hollowed out at the base of the high rock by an ancient stream. The sunlight that filtered through the lichen made the walls glow warmly. Bluestar sat hunched in her nest like a brooding duck. Her long gray fur was dirty and matted. Perhaps her wounds are still too sore to wash properly, Fireheart thought. His mind shied away from considering the other possibility, that his leader no longer wished to look after herself. But the worry he had seen in Whitestorm's eyes pricked at him. Fireheart couldn't help noticing how thin Bluestar looked, and he remembered the half-eaten bird she'd abandoned last night, returning alone to her den instead of staying to share tongues with her senior warriors, as she'd used to. The clan leader raised her eyes as Fireheart entered, and he was relieved to see a faint spark of interest when she saw him. "Fireheart," she greeted him, sitting up and lifting her chin. She held her broad gray head with the same dignity Fireheart had admired when he first met her in the woods near the old two-leg home. It was Bluestar who had invited him to join the clan, and her faith in him had quickly established a special bond between them. "Bluestar," he began, respectfully dipping his head. "Whitestorm's been to the nursery today. Brindleface told him her kits are ready to begin their apprenticeships." Bluestar slowly widened her eyes. "Already?" she murmured. Fireheart waited for Bluestar to start giving orders for the apprentice ceremony, but the she-cat just stared at him. Who do you want to be their mentors?" he prompted. "Mentors," echoed Bluestar faintly. Fireheart's fur began to prickle with unease. Suddenly a flinty hardness flared in her blue eyes. "Is there any cat we can trust to train these innocent kits?" she spat. Fireheart flinched, too shocked to answer. The leader's eyes flashed once more. "Can you take them?" she demanded. "Or Greystripe?" Fireheart shook his head, trying to push away the alarm that jabbed at him like an adder. Had Bluestar forgotten that Greystripe was no longer part of ThunderClan? "I already have Cloudpaw and Greystripe." His words trailed away, and he took a small, fast breath and began again. "Bluestar, the only warrior not fit to train these kits was Tigerclaw, and he has been exiled, remember? Any one of ThunderClan's warriors would make a fine mentor for Brindleface's kits." He searched Bluestar's face for a reaction, but she was staring unseeing at the floor of the den. "Brindleface is hoping to have a naming ceremony soon," he persisted. "Her kits are more than ready. Cloudpaw was their litter mate, and he's been an apprentice for half a moon now." Fireheart leaned forward, willing Bluestar to answer. At last the she-cat nodded her head briskly and lifted her eyes to Fireheart. With a wave of relief he saw the tension leave her shoulders, and although her gaze still seemed remote and icy, it was calmer now. "We'll have the naming ceremony before we eat this evening," she meowed, as if she had never doubted it. "So who do you want to be their mentors?" Fireheart asked cautiously. He felt a tremor ripple through his tail as Bluestar stiffened again and her gaze darted anxiously around the cave. "You decide." Her reply was barely audible, and Fireheart decided not to press her any more. He dipped his head and meowed, "Yes, Bluestar," before backing out of the den. He sat in the shade of the high rock for a moment to gather his thoughts. Tigerclaw's treachery must have shaken her even more than he realized, if she didn't trust any of her warriors now. Fireheart ducked his head to give his chest a reassuring lick. It was barely a quarter moon since the attack by the rogue cats. Bluestar would get over it, he told himself. Meanwhile, he had to hide her anxiety from the other cats. If the clan was already uneasy, as Whitestorm had said, seeing Bluestar like this would only make them more alarmed. Fireheart flexed his shoulder muscles and padded toward the nursery. "Hi, Willowpelt," he meowed as he reached the queen. The pale gray she-cat was lying on her side outside the thicket of brambles that sheltered the kits, enjoying the warmth of the sun. She lifted her head as Fireheart stopped beside her. "Hi, Fireheart. How's life as deputy?" Her eyes were gently curious, and her voice was friendly, not challenging. "Fine," Fireheart told her. "Or it would be if I didn't have a pain in the neck for an apprentice," he thought with frustration, or the elders fretting about the wrath of StarClan, or a leader who couldn't even decide who should mentor Brindleface's kids. Glad to hear, purred Willowpelt. She twisted her head to wash her back. Is Brindleface around? Fireheart asked. She's inside, Willowpelt meowed between licks. Thanks. Fireheart pushed his way into the brambles. It was surprisingly bright inside. Sunlight streamed through gaps in the twisted branches, and Fireheart told himself he would have to get the holes patched before the cold winds of leaf fall. Hi, Brindleface, he meowed. Good news. Bluestar says the naming ceremony for your kits will be this evening. Brindleface was lying on her side while her two pale gray kits clambered over her. Thanks, StarClan, for that, she grunted as the heavier of the kits, his fur speckled with dark flecks, sprang off his mother's flank and flung himself at his sister. These two are getting too big for the nursery. The kids tumbled over and rolled against their mother's back in a tangle of paws and tails. Brindleface gently shoved the kits away from her and asked, Do you know who their mentors will be? Fireheart was already prepared for this question. Bluestar hasn't decided yet, he explained. Are there any warriors you'd prefer? Brindleface looked surprised. Bluestar will know best. She should decide. Fireheart knew as well as any cat that it was traditional for the clan leader to select mentors. Yes, you're right, he meowed heavily. His fur pricked as the breeze carried the odor of Tigerclaw's tabby kit to his scent glands. Where's Goldenflower? He asked Brindleface, more sharply than he intended. Her eyes widened. She's taken her kits to meet the elders, she replied. She narrowed her eyes at Fireheart. You recognize Tigerclaw and his son, don't you? Fireheart nodded uncomfortably. He has his father's look, but that's all, Brindleface assured him. He's gentle enough with the other kits, and his sister certainly keeps him in his place. Well, that's good. Fireheart turned away. I'll see you later at the ceremony, he meowed as he pushed his way back through the entrance. Does this mean Bluestar's decided when the naming ceremony should be? Willowpelt called over to him when he appeared outside. Yes, he answered. Who will be their mentor? But Fireheart trotted away before he could hear the rest of Willowpelt's question. News of the naming ceremony would spread through the camp like forest fire, and every cat would want to know the same thing. Fireheart would have to decide soon, but his nostrils were still filled with the scent of Bramblekit, and his mind whirled as the dark thoughts unfolded sinister wings within him. Instinctively, he headed for the fern tunnel that led to the Medicine Cat's clearing. Yellowfang's apprentice, Cinderpelt, would be there. Now that Greystripe had gone to live with RiverClan, Cinderpelt was Fireheart's closest friend. He knew that the gentle gray she-cat would be able to make sense of the confused emotions that seethed in his heart. He quickened his pace through the cool ferns and emerged into the sunlight clearing. At one end loomed the flat face of a tall rock split down the center. The niche in the middle of the stone was just large enough for Yellowfang to make her den and store her healing herbs. Fireheart was about to call when Cinderpelt limped out from the shadowy cleft in the rock. As ever, delight at seeing his friend was tempered by the pain of seeing her twisted hind leg that had prevented her from becoming a warrior. The young she-cat had been badly injured when she'd run onto the thunder path. Fireheart couldn't help feeling responsible because Cinderpelt had been his apprentice when the accident happened. But as soon as she recovered under the watchful eye of the clan's medicine cat, Yellowfang had begun to teach her how to care for sick cats, taking her on as an apprentice a moon and a half ago. Cinderpelt had found her place in the clan at last. A large bunch of herbs dangled from Cinderpelt's jaws as she limped into the clearing. Her face creased with a worried frown, and she didn't even notice Fireheart standing at the tunnel entrance. She dropped the bundle on the sun-baked ground and began sorting fretfully through the leaves with her forepaws. Cinderpelt? He meowed. The little cat glanced up at him, surprised. Fireheart, what are you doing here? Are you sick? Fireheart shook his head. No, is everything okay? Cinderpelt looked dejectedly at the pile of leaves in front of her, and Fireheart patted over and gave her a nuzzle. What's the matter? Don't tell me you spilled mouse bile in Yellowfang's nest again. No, replied Cinderpelt indignantly. Then she lowered her eyes. I should have never agreed to train as a medicine cat. I'm a disaster. I should have read the signs when I found that rotting bird. Fireheart remembered the moment that had happened after his naming ceremony. Cinderpelt had chosen a magpie from the fresh kill pile to give to Bluestar, only to find that beneath its soft feathers it was crawling with maggots. Did Yellowfang think that was an omen about you? Fireheart asked. Well, no, Cinderpelt admitted. So what makes you think you're not cut out to be a medicine cat? He tried not to let his mind dwell on the fact that the rotting magpie could have been an omen about another cat, his leader, Bluestar. Cinderpelt flicked her tail with frustration. Yellowfang asked me to mix a poultice for her, just a simple one for cleansing wounds. It was one of the first things she ever taught me, but now I've forgotten which herbs to put in it. She's going to think I'm an idiot. Her voice rose to a wail, and her blue eyes were huge and troubled. You're no idiot, and Yellowfang knows that, Fireheart told her robustly. But it's not the first dumb thing I've done lately. Yesterday I had to ask her the difference between foxglove and poppy seeds. Cinderpelt hung her head even lower. Yellowfang said I was a danger to the clan. Oh, you know what Yellowfang's like, Fireheart reassured her. She's always saying things like that. Yellowfang had been a Shadow Clan medicine cat, and although she had become part of ThunderClan after being exiled by their cruel leader Broken Tail, she still betrayed flashes of fierce temper of a Shadow Clan warrior. But one of the reasons she said Cinderpelt got on so well, she and Cinderpelt got on so well, was that Cinderpelt was more than capable of standing up to Yellowfang's irritable outbursts. Cinderpelt sighed. I don't think I've got what it takes to become a medicine cat. I thought I was doing the right thing, becoming Yellowfang's apprentice, but it's no good. I just can't learn everything I need to know. Fireheart crouched down until his eyes were level with Cinderpelt's. This is about Silverstream, isn't it? He meowed fiercely. He remembered the day at Sunning Rocks when Greystrape's RiverClan queen had given birth before her time. Cinderpelt had tried desperately to save her, but Silverstream had lost too much blood. The beautiful Silver Tabby had died, although the newborn kits had survived. Cinderpelt didn't reply, and Fireheart knew he was right. You saved her kits, he pointed out, but I lost her. You did everything you could. Fireheart leaned forward to lick Cinderpelt on her soft gray head. Look, just ask Yellowfang what herbs to use in the poultice. She won't mind. I hope so. Cinderpelt sounded unconvinced. Then she gave herself a shake. I need to stop feeling sorry for myself, don't I? Yeah, Fireheart answered, flicking his tail at her. Sorry. Cinderpelt threw him a rueful look that glimmered with the hint of her old humor. I don't suppose you've brought any fresh kill with you. Fireheart shook his head. Sorry, I just came to speak to you. Don't tell me Yellowfang's starving you. No, but this medicine cat thing is harder than you'd think, Cinderpelt replied. I haven't had the chance to take any fresh kill today. Her eyes flashed with curiosity. What did you want to talk to me about? Tiger Claw's kits. Fireheart felt the bleakness seep into his belly again, especially Bramble Kit. Because he looks like his father. Fireheart winced. Were his feelings that easy to read? I know I shouldn't judge him, but he's just a kit. But when I saw him, it was as if Tiger Claw were looking at me. I couldn't move. Fireheart shook his head slowly, ashamed of his admission, but glad of the chance to confide in his friend. I don't know if I'll ever be able to trust him. If you see Tiger Claw every time you look at him, it's not surprising you feel like that, mewed Cinderpelt gently. But you must look beyond the color of his pelt and try to see the cat inside. Remember, he's not just Tiger Claw's kit. There's some of Goldenflower in him, too, and he will never know his father. It will be the clan that raised him. She added, You of all cats should know that you can't judge someone by the circumstances of their birth. Cinderpelt was right. Fireheart had never let his kitty pet roots interfere with his loyalty to the clan. Has StarClan spoken to you about Bramblekit? He asked, knowing that Cinderpelt and Yellowfang would have studied Silverpelt at the moment of his birth. His heart lurched uncomfortably as the gray cat looked away and murmured, StarClan doesn't always share everything with me. Fireheart knew Cinderpelt well enough to know she was holding something back. But they shared something with you, right? Cinderpelt gazed up at him, her blue eyes steady. His destiny will be as important as that of any kit born to ThunderClan, she mewed firmly. Fireheart knew he wouldn't be able to make Cinderpelt reveal what StarClan had told her if she didn't want to. He decided to tell Cinderpelt about the other problem that was troubling him. There's something else I wanted to talk to you about, he confessed. I have to decide who should be mentors for Brindleface's kits. Isn't that up to Bluestar? She asked me to choose for her. Cinderpelt lifted her head in surprise. Why are you looking so worried, then? You should be flattered. Flattered? Fireheart echoed silently, recalling the hostility and confusion in Bluestar's eyes. He shrugged. Maybe, but I'm not sure who to pick. You must have some idea, Cinderpelt prompted him. Not a clue. Cinderpelt frowned thoughtfully. Well, how did you feel when I was named your apprentice? Fireheart was caught off guard by the question. Proud and scared and desperate to prove myself, he replied slowly. Which one of the warriors do you think wants to prove himself the most? Cinderpelt mewed. Fireheart narrowed his eyes. An image of a brown tabby flashed in his mind. Dustpelt. Cinderpelt nodded thoughtfully as he went on. He must be dying to get his first apprentice. He was pretty close to Tigerclaw, so he'll want to prove his loyalty to the clan now that Tigerclaw's been exiled. He's a good warrior, and I think he'll make a good mentor. Even as he spoke, Fireheart realized he had more of a personal motive for choosing Dustpelt. The tabby's eyes had flashed enviously as Bluestar twice made Fireheart a mentor, first to Cinderpelt, then to Cloudpaw. Perhaps, Fireheart thought guiltily, giving Dustpelt an apprentice would soothe the warrior's jealousy and make him easier to get along with. Well, then that's one chosen, Cinderpelt mewed encouragingly. Fireheart looked down into the medicine cat's clear, wide eyes. She made it sound so simple. And what about the other? Asked Cinderpelt. The other what? Yellowfang's rasping mew sounded from the fern tunnel, and the dark gray she-cat padded stiffly into the clearing. Fireheart turned to greet her. As usual, her fur looked matted and dull, as if caring for the clan left her no time for grooming, but her orange eyes gleamed, missing nothing. Bluestar's asked Fireheart to choose the mentors for Brindleface's kits, Cinderpelt explained. Oh, has she? Yellowfang's eyes widened in surprise. Who have you come up with? We've already chosen Dustpelt, Fireheart began. Yellowfang interrupted him. We? She rasped. Who's we? Cinderpelt helped. He admitted. I'm sure Bluestar will be pleased that a cat who's barely begun her apprenticeship is making such important decisions for the clan. Yellowfang remarked. She turned to Cinderpelt. Have you finished mixing that poultice? Cinderpelt opened her mouth and then shook her head before wordlessly padding back to the pile of herbs in the middle of the clearing. Yellowfang snorted as she watched her apprentice limp away. That cat hasn't answered me back for days, she complained to Fireheart. There was a time when I couldn't get a word in edgewise. The sooner she gets back to normal, the better it'll be for both of us. The old medicine cat frowned, then turned back to Fireheart. Now, where were we? Trying to decide who would be the second mentor to Brindleface's kits, Fireheart answered heavily. Who doesn't have an apprentice? Rasped Yellowfang. Well, Sandstorm, Fireheart replied. He couldn't help feeling it would be unfair to give Dustpelt an apprentice without giving Sandstorm one, too. After all, the two cats had trained together and earned their warrior names at the same time. Do you think it would be wise to have two inexperienced mentors at the same time? Yellowfang pointed out. Fireheart shook his head. So, is there a more experienced ThunderClan warrior who doesn't have an apprentice? Yellowfang pressed him. Darkstripe, Fireheart thought reluctantly. Every cat knew that Darkstripe had been one of Tigerclaw's closest friends, even if he had chosen to stay with the clan when the traitor had been sent to exile. Fireheart realized that if he didn't choose Darkstripe to be a mentor, it might look as if he were taking revenge for the hostility that the warrior had shown him since he first came to ThunderClan. After all, Darkstripe was an obvious choice to take one of the apprentices. Yellowfang must have seen the look of determination on Fireheart's face, for she meowed. Right, that's sorted. Would you mind leaving me and my apprentice in peace now? We have work to do. Fireheart pushed himself to his paws, his relief that he had found two mentors tempered by the uneasy feeling that while the chosen cat's loyalty to the clans was not in question, he was far less sure of their loyalty to him. And I believe that is where we will stop for tonight. I hope everyone enjoyed listening, and I hope you have a good evening and a good night. Till next time, my friends.